What's up, YouTube? So we don't do a whole lot of like serious testing streams when we're going live. A lot of the times it's kind of trying out some for fun cards or some viewer suggestions, things like that. So I wanted you to see a little bit more today what the behind the scenes kind of looks like when we're preparing for something big, a challenge, or trying to narrow down cards in a list. Wanting to see if something has like real competitively viable legs. And that's kind of what I'm doing today. Four color shadow is an archetype or a variation of shadow that's definitely pretty near and dear to my heart. Had some challenge top 8s with it, plenty of 5-0s with it back when Lurrus was around. Now we don't have Lurrus, but we do still have Giganta. So one of the theories I was kind of coming up with before the last bannings, before Scam got hit and Up the Beanstalk got hit, was if I could realistically make a 4-color shadow deck that allowed me to not only play Giganta, but incorporate like the Fable of the Mirror Breaker, Croak's Attack that I'd been doing so well with in Jund Shadow, while still having the blue available for Stubborn Denial, Stern Scolding, Flusterstorm, Spell Pierce, those kind of things. In this case, I haven't adapted the deck much since the bannings, but what I've seen is a resurgence of like Living End, Rhinos, Scam matchups that 4-color shadow statistically has had a pretty good time against. So I'm kind of hoping that this might be an option for some of the weekend's challenges, kind of a meta call of getting in some Stubborn Denial enabling threats, getting in the Fable Croak's Attack to help with all the Scam decks still running around, keep Giganta, keep a lot of that sideboard interaction for things like Hardened Scales with Terra Sunder, Stern Scolding, Yawgmoth with Stern Scolding, the extra Fatal Push, and then extra copies of cards like Veil of Summer, Engineered Explosives to kind of shore up some of those unfair matchups. So let's go ahead and jump in with this. I could talk more about the list, but at this point, like, most of the cards are pretty known quantities, so I don't want to spend too much time going over all these individual card choices when you know, if you're watching this, what the majority of these do. I'd rather get into like some of the gameplay and show the play patterns. So I will see y'all in round number 1 back then. All right, so we're here for round number 1. Opponent is on the play. Reveal our companion. Opponent's name is Turn 3 Tron. I certainly hope that's not the case. Of note with the mana base, we do not have a copy of Breeding Pool, and that's intentional because we want all of our lands to potentially tap for either black or red for Croxa. So got a pretty decent opening hand. If it is Tron, like, we're going to be a little slow out the gate. But if it's anything else, we do have like turn 1 interaction, turn 2 Tarmogoyf, turn 3 Fable. We get like Stomping Ground, maybe like a Watery Grave turn 1, or Steam Vents to hold up our interaction, and like Overgrown Tomb, get all of our mana straightened out into Fable. If they are, in fact, on Tron, I'm not just going to throw back like a good hand off of the possibility that that's the case. Yeah, it looks like they are not Tron, and it's a liar. Okay, Thoughtseize could very much change up what we want to do here. Jetmir Garden on turn 1 makes me think like creativity. And if it's creativity, I really don't want to lead out on Tarmogoyf on turn 2 on the blind without having done something on turn 1. Like, I don't want to have turn 1 hold up stub. My opponent plays like a Wrenn and 6. I play a Tarmogoyf, and they just get like a free bolt on the Goyf. So I'd rather lead with the Tarmogoyf. And if that's the case, let's go off of the Overgrown Tomb so I can make sure I get my Tarmogoyf down on turn 2. Alright, so it is creativity. We have a potential Saw Stub for a Teferi. Persist doesn't do anything until they find something to put in their yard. If we stub Teferi, we probably just untap into Fable on 3 and let them like choose for Leyline Binding. Alternatively, we could take the Teferi. We can't play out the Goyf on turn 2. I think I'm just going to take the Binding here. Plan on like getting down nothing turn 2. Stub the turn 3 Teferi. Okay, Bolt's pretty decent. So I could go like play Goyf, they play Teferi. I bolt the Teferi. Replay the Goyf. Hold up, stub this turn. And if they do nothing, I do want to make sure to bolt them. And that's so that I can get down the Goyf as a 4-5 on my turn instead of a 3-4, so that I have like a fully enacted Stubborn Denial ready to go. Ferocious. Very fetch and shock up a Steam Vents. Very chunky Goyf down. They did show us that one of their lands was an Arid Mesa off the top. Goyf down, hold up our spot removal in case they have like land creativity. Really nice of them though to show us the lands that they're top decking instead of playing out this wooded foothills that we know about. Verdant Catacombs really good because that's going to let me fetch and shock up a Blood Crypt and have double spot removal up. So if they do get like a token here, I can interact with it and another one. Dwarven Mine. Let's start with eat on a token. Things. Our turn. Good there. See if we bait like a lightning bolt on the shadow, and then we can bolt ourselves. Go and get Blood Crypt and bolt the token, attack for lethal. This long pause makes me assume. Did make me assume they had a bolt. Kind of read me for a bolt. I might just put them down. I get punished for going for the bolt. I think the best thing they have is like Spell Pierce. And I pay for that. If they have double Pierce and they can't fetch up another token, the Persist is dead. So clean little game 1 win there. Goes forward, we get Spell Pierce coming in, Fluster Storm, get our Engineered Explosives. We could potentially look at Alpine Moon to help shut off Dwarven Mine. We could look at Veil of Summer to help answer like opposing spell pierces. Personally, I kind of like the Alpine Moon plan post board against creativity, because like you don't really care about giving them the extra color of mana because they have so many triumphs and stuff anyway that they're not really worried about getting the extra colors. But if you can just stop a Dwarven Mine or two from coming online in the first couple turns, then you usually have a reasonable amount of pressure to kind of turn the corner under that. Ragavan's pretty weak. It's bad into Ren and 6. It's bad into like Lightning Bolt, Fire and Ice. It's blocked by Dwarf tokens later. Unholy Heat could be better. But they do have, we saw Teferi. I think this is going to come down to whether or not I want to bring in like Veil of Summer. What I want to take out as far as Bowmaster, maybe a Croxa, Fable can be a little slow. But you do have to win the game eventually. So I know I'll take out a Terminate. Bowmaster does like the same job of just killing off tokens for less mana. Fatal Push is okay, but I'm already pretty heavy on like spot removal. Coming down to Veil of Summer. Good against Spell Pierce. Good against Teferi. Tempo Swing Turn. I think I'll board out a Fable and a Croxa on the draw. Fails. Again, to kind of help out against opposing Spell Pierces if we get into a counter war with Stub, Spell Pierce, whatnot. Or help against the Teferi bounce. Well, 6 lands, no threat. It's always funny in these matches because, like, if one of these was a Tarmogoyf, I'd probably really consider keeping it. But no threat, nothing to do after the Thoughtseize. Shit back. This hand is better. Not great, but better. If I get a Watery Grave, dead, so I'm gonna throw back the Veil. Now we're looking for like Tarmogoyf, looking for a stuff. Probably should have more considered like going down to 5. Fetch so that I could Thoughtseize and hold up Spell Pierce or something. Playing straight into Veil of Summer. Dwarven Mine. They have a Teferi here. Spell a lot of trouble for me. Yes, maybe they could tick up and we could find another red source. Down. Very try to get out on the front foot. So regardless of what we do, they're going to have a pretty good counterplay to it. If we take the Fable, they've got the creativity, which kills us on the spot. So we like have to take the creativity. And even if we do that, they've got another Teferi getting down or Fable. Goop, go to game 3. Mulligan really, really punishing us there. Back on the play, we could consider bringing back in some Ragavan. Since it looks like they're more on Leyline binding and Teferi and like slower game plan, then Ragavan on the play could still be pretty decent. Look at trimming a Bowmaster. Do like Fable Croxa a lot more on the play. But if they're heavy into Teferi, then both of them kind of look. I want to bring in a couple Ragavans. Don't really like the plan of not being all or nothing on the Ragavans. I know I've talked about it a few times on stream and in other videos. I'm just like really in the camp of you're either all or nothing on Ragavan. I hate the whole like 2 in the main, 2 in the side, or none in the main, 2 in the side. Like just a card that like if you want it on turn 1 and you want to back up on turn 2 in case they deal with the one on turn 1. But can't buy into it in the matchup. Can't make myself do it. Kind of like flip-flopping around on sideboarding. This is a good time to remember that, like, if I'm flipping around this much on sideboarding, I need a more decisive card or two to bring in against creativity. All right, so this is pretty good. I have like turn 1 bolt you or something, turn 2 Goyf, turn 3 Goyf. Get the pressure going. Do believe that I'm gonna bolt my opponent. Like the extra spot removal spells don't really matter if I get enough pressure going. Is good. Obviously, like they could have a bolt and bolt my Tarmogoyf. Throw the second Tarmogoyf though. Way more likely that they just have a Leyline binding. Six. Okay. Third land here would be like a plus draw. So we just go in. Go in base. Or the Ren. Go at another Tarmogoyf. Have Watery Grave for Stubborn Denial. We just really hope this is like a Teferi or a Fable of the Mirror Breaker here. you Ren ping me? I accidentally attack at the Ren? Or I did accidentally attack at the Ren. I did not mean to do that. Whoops. Add for me. Should be 2 less, but I'm probably here just taking out the Ren to pump the other Goyf. Am I taking out the Ren? Choices. I kind of backed myself into a corner by attacking at the Ren the first time when I should have just been attacking at them. Got a creativity covered. And then fire off and turn Unholy Heat. They have like a ley line binding for a Goyf or something, and go ahead and get that out of the way. Spell Pierce, that's fine with me. Goyf is decent. Anything to like keep putting pressure on is pretty fine with me here. If they get another Dwarven Mine and go for creativity, they can't Veil of Summer. They don't have a blue for Spell Pierce. Hopefully this is wrap it up. Proof from blue and black, not hexproof from red. Right. 2-1 start. I will see y'all round number 2. All right, back with round number 2. Again, opponent is on the play. Got pretty decent hand. Got some interaction. We've got Kroxa that can close the game out pretty quickly if we're able to escape it. We've already got like a free 5 cards in the yard right there. We can always just bolt our opponent, bobble plus our fetch lands. So, yeah, I'll roll with it. If opponent's on something faster, we hope we can kind of use the lightning bolt to help us keep up a little bit. If they're on something slower, then one breeding pool, noble hierarch. Am I up against Infect? So if this is Infect, I really want to go ahead and kill this Noble Hierarch. Like, I think a lot of times people underestimate how much Noble Hierarch does for Infect. Like, it is an absurdly good card in that deck. I want to shuffle away that first bauble anyway. Oh, Bowmasters is a great draw if that's what this is. Is in fact Infect. Lightning Bolt's really good as well, so pretty good draws off the top. I could go for the Croxa here. I would die if my opponent has got Scale Up. They'd have to have third land, Scale Up, Mutagenic to actually kill me. So 4 cards exactly in the 4 cards that they would have. I think I'm going to do it. Like, my opponent's never going to fire off Inkmoth Nexus into just open mana here. So I don't think that, like, sitting back and doing nothing really accomplishes much. And if they are firing up Inkmoth and attacking, then they're not playing to the board. Also good for me. Now, obviously, if they do have Scale Up double Mutagenic Growth, I'm going to take a big hit and die. But they don't have land Scale Up double Mutagenic. Probably just taking like a hit for 5 or something. But again, like a hit for 5 and my opponent not playing to the board is really good for me. Would certainly be better if I was on one of the shadow variants with like Dragon's Rage Channeler, but Pendelhaven's a problem. But if they just like Pendelhaven the Inkmoth, that could be good for me. Scale up. Okay. So this turn's going to kind of come down to whether or not we can deal with the Inkmoth. Go back to my turn. I don't want to flash in the Bowmaster yet. But I do want to play out the Shadow. So I think I'm going to get Overgrown Tomb, play out the Shadow. That way I do not have to show them blue. Don't have to show them blue for Stubborn Denial yet. They can probably guess that I've got Stubborn Denial based on the Polluted Delta, or that I've got blue in the deck, but maybe they don't think about it. Maybe they just kind of think, oh, wants black fetch lands for Shadow, sure. If I can save the Lightning Bolt somehow, that would be really nice for me, because then I could potentially look at like a lethal Shadow attack. instead of needing, yeah, them not doing anything really favors me. So if I go fetch, shock, watery grave, Bowmaster, ping myself, and then untap fetch land, I force the chump block. Force the chump block on the shadow. Really, really clutch here. So I don't want to say we got bailed out by a bunch of really good draws, but we definitely didn't draw dead. I think we had like a land in there somewhere. So Pendlehaven, second Pendlehaven. Now they're kind of locked into either chumping the shadow or trying to like block and eat one of these other things. Like they're not going to block, so we're winging for lethal. We don't really need to show them anything. There we go. So they did end up having that scale up on the turn with the Ink Moth, but like I said, with the mana restrictions, because we killed off the Noble Hierarch, it did put them in a position where they had to have like a very specific set of things in a very specific window. And if they didn't manage to get everything together, we were pretty favored after that point. Like holding up multiple pieces of interaction after that little window there, really huge. So Stern Scolding, I want in Flusterstorm, Spell Pierce, Fatal Push, Terminate for sure. I could look at Veil of Summer because they're likely to be bringing in some number of like Spell Pierce or Flusterstorm of their own, something like that. EE's okay. Alpine Moon is okay. Like the matchup really comes down to Ink Moth more often than not. So like Alpine Moon is a way to shut off Ink Moth completely is nice. And then EE missing Ink Moth is extremely relevant. But now that we have access to cards like Orcish Bowmaster, we get more main deck ways to fight over Ink Moth. So I kind of just want to trim some of the more expensive stuff. And I mean, I could even go like completely off Kroxa and Fable if I wanted to. I kind of want to keep in a Kroxa because it's a really good way to fight the hand and provide a very quick clock once it comes back from the graveyard. Thoughtseize can be a little awkward with them probably bringing in a large number of Veil of Summers. So I don't mind trimming some Thoughtseizes or like trimming a Thoughtseize, Stubborn Denial or something. But I do think Stubb's got like a little more equity than Thoughtseize. Stub making them like tap mana on their turn is a lot more effective than Thoughtseize making them tap mana on my turn for stuff like Veil of Summer. Got some interaction. We've got a little scry possibility. Yeah. Keep this. Looking for some sort of a threat off the top. Tarmogoyf would be really good. One of Kroxa wouldn't be terrible. Bowmaster would be good. Hierarch on one. Definitely not letting him untap with that. Trip's fine. I really cannot stress how important not letting Infect get into like a mana advantage situation is, especially when this is like a matchup of two of the more efficient decks in Modern. Like all of our 1 mana, a couple 2 mana spells against all their 1 mana, a couple 2 mana spells. I'm going to try to Unholy Heat this so that I can save the Bolt to take out something that's gotten Pendlehavened. Cluster Storm's okay. Might help us fight through like a Veil of Summer. Ink Moth. Other Noble Hierarch. Get down Steam Vents, Phase, Bowman, the Noble Hierarch. If they got a mutagenic growth, it's unfortunate, but I think I want to be as efficient as I can right now. It's a lot like game 1 where we kind of give them a position where they can fire up an Ink Moth, get a pump spell on it. But again, if they're doing that, then they're not progressing their board state. And I'm pretty happy with that trade-off. Generate Rot Priest. Rot Priest, no second land. Excellent for the home team. So, Rot Priest pumps whenever my stuff or their stuff targets their own thing. I can shock in, attack first. So if they want to like block something, I can flash in the other Bowmaster and kill off the Rot Priest. Notably, Rot Priest does only target when it gets targeted, or only trigger when it gets targeted by a spell, not when it gets targeted by an ability. So like Bowmaster would get through it. Go ahead and bolt now, so if they have a mutagenic growth, I can fight over this. Have a second mutagenic growth. Unfortunate for us. Rot Priest down. Pass it back. Enough. It's good. I think what I'm going to do is offer up the potential trade again. And then before damage, I'm going to go for the Unholy Heat on the Rot Priest. Get that hopefully out of the way. And if this resolves, then I'm just going to go for the Bowmaster here and up my damage output. Again, we're in a situation where they would have to have like land, mutagenic growth, scale up. Like those 3 cards exactly to kill me with the Ink Moth right here. And if they don't have them, then I can untap with like Terminate. Plus now they're really incentivized to like fire up the Ink Moth with the Waterlogged Grove and hold up the Pendlehaven. Distortion Strike, eh? This is, if they don't have another land, this is like phenomenal for us, because now if they want to get the back half of Distortion Strike, they're going to have to... Actually, it doesn't matter if they have another land, because they just played the Waterlogged Grove this turn. But if they want the back half of Distortion Strike, they're going to have to fire up the Ink Moth on their upkeep before the Distortion Strike comes off of Suspend. And then we get a window to terminate, and if they have like a spell to try to protect it, we have Soft Stubborn Denial. Take this. Back. Rebound trigger goes on the stack, and you have to decide if you want to cast it before it actually chooses a target. So on the Infect side, you can respond to the rebound trigger going on the stack by firing up the Ink Moth. So I guess I have to wait, actually, because if I go for the Terminate... No, because if I go for the Terminate and they play something and I Soft Stub, they have to tap the Ink Moth to pay for the stub anyway. So this is fine to go for it now. Last card is some sort of like Veil of Summer, Vines. So we stub. They have to tap the Ink Moth to pay for the stub, which means they don't get to attack. Them not attacking is much better for me than it is for them. Choose not to pay and just let the Ink Moth die. That's probably not the right choice, because if you did pay the one with the Ink Moth, then at least you have a chance to top deck like a 4 damage or +4/+4 pump spell next turn. Might of Old Croza, something like that could win it. But if you let the Ink Moth die, then you can't draw both a land and a threat. So the best thing you're doing is playing a Summoning Sick threat next turn. And then by then, like, kind of dead. So 2-0. Awesome start to the league. I will see y'all back in round number 3. Welcome back to round number 3. We actually win a die roll this time. So get to be on the play. I would love to play first. Really looking for a proactive hand, like a Thoughtseize into Tarmogoyf. Well, there's the Thoughtseize and the Tarmogoyf. Kind of missing some relevant pieces. If any one of these other cards, or if any of these 4 cards on the right side, the 2 Stubborn Denial, the Fable, or the Unholy Heat, were like a fetch land, I would probably keep this. But no lands. Pretty easy mulligan. And, hey, mulligan into Thoughtseize Tarmogoyf. So, we'll keep this. Throw back Fable. Try to stay on the proactive front foot by saying turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Goyf, maybe like turn 3 Goyf. Throw in a bolt somewhere and just try to close the game out quickly. If I knew I was up against something where the game's likely to go longer, like blue-white control or something to that effect, I might be more likely to throw back the bolt over the Fable. But since I don't know what I'm up against, I like to err on the side of being proactive. Alright. Fire and Ice, Flame of Venor, Lorien revealed Subtlety. So, some form of Rhinos. My immediate guess. Flame of Venor is an instant. Pretty annoying with Tarmogoyf. Subtlety. What's the likelihood of Goyf getting up to a 5-6? If I take Subtlety, next turn, play Goyf, have Bolt, then Goyf's up to a 4-5. We're not outgrowing Flame of Venor, so I think I'm just going to take the Flame. Yeah, take the Flame, next turn, play out the Goyfs. Maybe my opponent subtleties the Goyf. But the important thing is we should be able to get this Goyf big enough to outgrow a Rhino. And if we do that twice, we have ourselves a game plan. Who knows? Play out a Goyf. And with Overgrown Tomb, even if they ice one of my lands on my next turn, I still have a land to play out the other Goyf. That's cool. Cycle the Lorien revealed here. Iced. Getting iced. So let's start with play another Goyf. See if they go for the subtlety. Because if they do, that puts creature in the yard to grow the first Goyf. If they don't, then have two Goyfs. Not to ice down my Goyf. Fine for me. Lorien revealed. Sick Island. Alright, have they found the Cascade spell? $1 million question has been answered. So now, what am I looking for? Goyf. So I could go Bolt the Shardless Agent, attack with both. Probably like play the Tarmogoyf first. See if I can get the subtlety out of hand. They've got subtlety plus Dead and Gone. Oh my. I think this was a Fire and Ice the entire time. This was a Gone. So they might not even be able to subtlety. Play Goyf. Tapped land. Say go. Not the most thrilling turn in the world, but I don't really want to like attack into the Rhinos and have my opponent like double block one of my Goyfs. Even though that's probably not the worst thing in the world. Definitely the annoying part about rhinos is if they string together some rhinos, it gets pretty bad pretty quick. So I know they've got a subtlety. I know they've got a dead gone. E. Okay. Positive. Let's go ahead and terminate a rhino. I'm assuming this is going to be like untap, dead, or gone one of my goyfs and want to like attack in after that. So I'm going to have bolt a shardless agent, block 2 rhinos, take 6. Take 6 isn't die. Block 1, block 1, block 1. I guess they could just have like a force of negation. Pretty bad for me. Letting me triple block the rhino. Fury's banned, right? Like, Fury kill off 2 of my rhinos, or 2 of my goyfs, would suck. Okay. So, I know they've got a subtlety and an unknown. If the last card, the unknown card, is a violent outburst, I die. And the way of the jungle. So I could just attack in with 1 goyf. But that doesn't sound like a way to actually win the game. Can't imagine a world in which my opponent plays around like Teamer Battle Rage. But yeah, this is kind of hoping that they'll play into a double force chump. Don't be violent outburst. That's all I'm asking of you. Didn't. Sidebinder's fine. Sidebinder is not a violent outburst. Subtlety unknown. Still in double chump block mode. Even if they attack, I kind of get the call it the initiative. Double chump. And I think I'm going to go ahead and play out the shadow. Like, I know they've got the subtlety, but it doesn't really matter that I know they have the subtlety because, like, they have to fire off double mode off that. I was going to say, it doesn't really matter that they know I have the subtlety, or I know they have the subtlety. All right, so that does change things a little bit. We'll go for the Giganta now instead of the Shadow. It's like they're both going to take my whole turn. I don't think it really matters which one, but now if I draw something else to do along with the Shadow next turn, I can double spell. Outburst plus Tidebinder would be kind of rough. Tidebinder plus Venor would be whatever. I go into attacks. This is Ice My Goyf plus Flash and Subtlety and Chump. That would be really good for me. Okay. Take those. I think I'm just going to play out the Shadow and not play the Fetch yet. Or not play the Shock yet. There's no Fury in the format anymore, so I don't have to worry about my opponent just like hard casting a Fury. If they double dead my Shadow, that means they're not dealing with the other stuff. Cool. Game 2. Okay, it's Rhinos. I want Spell Pierce, I want Flusterstorm, Fatal Push, EEs, maybe Terminate, maybe Veil of Summer. I really wish Veil of Summer could stop like the Tidebinder ETB trigger. Having a land like Stifled feels pretty bad, but it's more just for Force Negation than anything else. Force Negation, Ice, Mystical Dispute, that stuff. Bowmaster's pretty bad because when your opponent's making 4/4s and you're making 1/1s, a little bit of a power disparity there. But Bowmaster is decent into like Lorien Revealed, and I think it's better against the 4 or 5 color Rhino builds that are likely to run like Teferi and stuff. But against Teamer, less so. Terra Sunder, if I was a little more worried about Blood Moon, Stubborn Denial, Spell Pierce, backup Fable kind of deck. Brooks is a little slow. Ragavan on the draw is pretty bad. Decent on the play. On the draw, it's kind of rough. And then normally I like to trim some number of lightning bolts in the matchup. Like Unholy Heat can kill a Rhino. Lightning Bolt has to double up with something else. A lot less enticing. But if I'm boarding out all of that, I've got to bring 2 things back in. What I want. Brooks is a little better than Ragavan. A Bowmaster. I guess in a world full of Flame of Venor, I might want to keep in a couple Bowmasters. Probably better than Ragavan. In the draw. On the draw, Thoughtseize, Shadow, Unholy Heat. Don't have a Spell Pierce, a Flusterstorm, a Stubborn Denial, or an Engineered Explosive. But that does give us 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 really, really good possible top decks. So I think I'm going to keep this. Plus, like, Tarmogoyf is good. So that's 12 top decks. More shadows are honestly fine since we don't have to worry about them getting like double 2 for 1 with Fury, 2 for 2. Opponent's on a mold of 6. Tarmogoyf. If I'm firing off this Thoughtseize no matter what, let's go ahead and do. Don't have a breeding pool. I do have Overgrown Tomb plus Steam Vent. Get Overgrown Tomb here. That also means that if our opponent does have Blood Moon, we could get basic Swamp off the Polluted Delta to still be able to Tarmogoyf next turn with a basic Swamp and have like Fable after that. Blood Moon, double Force of Victory. So let's just take the Blood Moon and say go. We'll bobble, see if they're drawing into like another Blood Moon. Shardless Agent off the top. Hey. Kinda unfortunate. Could be worse. Pretty good draw. Also a pretty good draw. So let's go ahead and rip away this Shardless Agent. I guess they could force a negation. I'm pretty okay with force a negation, right? Not two, so we'll take the Shardless Agent. Get down one of these shadows. Blood Crypt. You know, they can't draw both a Cascade spell and a land this next turn. Best top deck would be what? Land. I'm just not going to play around Blood Moon. They Blood Moon after I've got like multiple threats out on the board. Whatever. Combat first. Out. Goyf and Shadow. Pressure forward that we can. Got don't really know what you could have to get out of that spot. Like land Shardless Agent. Kill the Shardless Agent. Attack in. If we hit a land, they can't double block. So it would have to start with land Shardless Agent. Then we can Holy Heat the Agent. They can't force because we know their hand would be double force of vigor, force negation. They'd have 2 Rhinos. We'd have 2 6/6 shadows. We attack all out. Double block. Kill off both the Rhinos. Okay. Yeah, pretty good match. Not much else to say. We'll see you back for round number 4. And back with round number 4. Pretty short little layover there. So we are on the play again. Looking for something proactive. Double fetch. Thoughtseize Shadow. Thoughtseize Goyf. Opponent reveals a Giganta. So I'm gonna roll with this. It's a little bit slower, but I do have some form of interaction, and Fable can potentially like throw away some of these dead cards to speed us up later. And if my opponent's revealing a Giganta, I'm assuming that it might be a little bit slower of a matchup. Build Giganta, and they mold a 6. Play Delta, say go. We can hold up steam vents if we need to bolt something. Otherwise, kind of thinking about just bobbling myself. Filter out this draw a little bit. Wooded Foothills, so it could be like Jun Saga. Burn. This is probably Zoo. That's what this is. Stubborn Denial I don't particularly want, so I'm fetch that away. Bolt the Ragavan. I turn. Ragavan of you on over. If it is a zoo matchup, which is what I'm inclined to believe at the moment, then like a Territorial Kavu or a Scion of Draco off the top could be kind of rough. Free damage. Scion of Draco's rough. Kavu's rough. If they kept a hand with just like Leyline bindings and this is just fetch up a tap Triome, that would be pretty good for me. Flooded here. I really need this Fable to resolve. So I'm kind of worried that if I just go like Swamp, fetch up a Swamp Fable, and they have a soft Stubborn Denial, I'm going to be in some trouble. But this is leading me to believe like fetch up, tap Triome, Leyline binding. Going to be kind of rough regardless of what I do here. The least we can do is play like our 2-for-1 play into the binding. So if they do have binding for the Fable, we at least get to keep our Shaman token around. And if their play was like bolt the Ragavan and they don't have a binding or something, then we're in much better shape because then we would get the double looting off the Fable, which would be ridiculously huge for us here. Could also have Orcish Bowmaster. Most zoo lists are on like Bowmasters now. 4 Bowmasters. So terminate really good means that I don't have to loot away if I don't want to. But if they're going to go ahead and Bowmaster my Shaman token, then I am going to terminate their Bowmaster and loot away a couple of these extra lands. Yes. Love to loot. Throw away Catacombs. Crypt. Stomping Ground. Pretty decent set of draws there. So opponent's down to 4 cards. If one of their last cards is a Leyline Binding, that's kind of okay for me. So I think what I'm going to do is shock in the Blood Crypt, dash the Ragavan. If they've got like Bolt here and they want to bolt the Ragavan or bolt the Shaman, trade with the Ragavan. I guess if they fetch shock a Steam Vents and bolt the Shaman, I just like don't attack with the Ragavan. But if they do nothing, then I get my treasure token, which is obviously good for me. And this is looking like a Leyline Binding. So maybe now I'm kind of inclined to like Lightning Bolt the army token. I'm going to do the army token, get in the 2 damage, keep my Shaman around. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Turn, we get to flip the Fable, play out the Shadow. Avu's pretty decent. Roxa also pretty deep. And Roxa, try to get one of these last 2 cards out of hand. Tribal. Now I feel pretty confident that their last card is like a Stubborn Denial. And if they want to attack in and exile my Kroxa, feel pretty good about that. Then I just have like Shadow, Reflection, Fable. Shadow, Reflection, Goblin Shaman. A Shadow. Oh, it's going to be loot, or is this going to be Exile the Kroxa? Exile the Kroxa. Armagoy. Good here. So We play the Tarmogoyf, try to copy it and attack. They'd have to have like leyline binding right there for the Goyf, in which case we probably just have to block with the Shaman. But again, I really think their last card right there was Stubborn Denial. It kind of felt like they were representing it a few times. All right, post forward against Zoo. Fatal Push, great. Terminate, great. Tear Asunder, surprisingly good. Hits Leyline Binding, hits Scion of Draco. If they're playing like Hidetsugu, they get the ETB effect, but you still hit the Hidetsugu after that. Hits Chain to the Rocks if they're playing that. Bunch of good targets that are kind of hard to deal with. Veil of Summer. Usually don't see opposing Zoo decks playing Terminate. But could be used against like a Stubborn Denial. Stern Scolding. Gotta check and see on Stern Scolding. Actually, let me do that right now. I want to know if Territorial Kavu gets hit by Stern Scolding. So it depends on what the power and toughness is. It's defined in all zones. Territorial Kavu has a characteristic defining ability which applies in all zones, so its power and toughness on the stack is equal to the spell's controller's domain. Okay. Good to know. So, not bringing in Stern Scolding. I don't really care about countering like Ragavan, potential Wild Nicodle or something when I have a bunch of spot removal spells. Usually trim on some Thought Seizes against Zoo, because it is going to be a matchup that comes down to like Lightning Bolts and Tribal Flames and stuff like that. And then I kind of like trimming some number of Stubborn Denial in like the mid-rangey mirror like this. You're just less likely to have a creature sticking around that is able to enable Stubborn Denial. But I could also see just cutting like the extra Thoughtseize, keeping the stubs. But I think the first two Thoughtseizes have a lot of value, especially when it comes to like turn one being able to take a Scion or a Kavu, something like that. So I kind of like the 2-2 split. I think this is a trap hand. Like, if I was on the play and had the possibility of turn 1 Ragavan into turn 2 Fable, I think I'd be all for this hand. But on the draw, there's a really good chance that Ragavan either gets stonewalled by like a Kavu or a Kavu, Goyf, Neshoba Brawler or something on their turn 2, Scion of Draco, whatever, which I have no way of actually dealing with. My best draw would be a black source, and even then, a black source is just like play out a Croxa, hold up a Bowmasters. That doesn't do it. I think I'm shipping this back. Lander on the draw with the Ragavan. Surprisingly, I think it's like better than the first hand, because at least I have some form of interaction. Opponent mulligan. Opponent mulled to 6, so I think I'm going to go down to 5. Alright, this is better. Keep this. Throwback stub. Throwback. Ooh, it's either Croxa or the third land. Croxa. have the potential of like lightning bolt enabling a ferocious shadow or something. They do nothing on 1, so we'll play out Ragavan. There's always the chance that they proceed to follow up this with like not a territorial Kavu, a Shoba Brawler, which would be really, really good for me to be able to bolt and get an attack through. But obviously, if they have like a territorial Kavu or a Scion, a Draco, or something a little more menacing, a lot worse for me. Not a way to get the Kavu off the board, which means you got to attack into it, trade off the Ragavan and the Bolt. Like, we could just sit back and like not attack into it, but I feel like that's just not getting me anywhere. If I go no attack and they attack back and get to loot away something, like my hand's not great. Last thing I want to do is make their not great hand into like playable. Draco, pretty good. Looking for Terminate, Tear Asunder. Get Overgrown Tomb down. Fetch up a Swamp. Gigantha. Go. At least position ourselves to potentially top deck like an interactive piece for the Scion. Nicottle's fine. Ragavan. Shadow. Bloodstained Mire. It's definitely like any piece of interaction on their point just kind of blows the game open. Definitely banking on them having nothing. Not nothing. Turn back, probably just taking the 7 here, saying we're dead to Bolt or Tribal Flames. I'm going to have any chance here. It's going to start with like Ragavan hit into something. Okay. Again, they're playing like they've got a stubborn denial. So, don't particularly love our chances here of resolving anything. All right, so that was what? Mold to 5, kept 3 lands, ended up with 6. That's not going to win you a lot of games of Magic. Back on the play, Thoughtseize gets a little more enticing. It's like turn 1 Thoughtseize before your opponent can have Veil of Summer or Stubborn Denial is really nice. But I would have to trim something. Bowmaster on the play is not the most exciting thing. It's like good into a turn 1 Ragavan on our opponent's side, But we should have so many answers to a turn 1 Ragavan anyway, with like Thoughtseize of our own, Fatal Push, Bolt, Heat, Terminate, Armagoyf, whatever. So really, I think it depends on if I want to find room for the extra stubborn denials. Stub to help protect against Leyline Binding. I could see trimming a Kroxa, though Kroxa is really good into like the 2-for-1 deck. See trimming a Ragavan. Like keep the stub in, go down to 3 Thoughtseize. Alright, try that. I'd kind of treat it the same way you would against in like a draft where the last 2 or 3 cards probably don't matter that much. And you're likely overthinking it if you start like messing around with boarding one in or out and being indecisive. Like it's probably just not affecting your win rate hardly at all. I know I'm really bad about that, saying like, oh, well, do I want the 2 stubs in? Do I want the 2 Thoughtseizes? I'm going back and forth and like trying to pick out little scenarios where one might be better than the other. And like ultimately, it's just not going to play out that much one way or the other. Like maybe you get rewarded for the stub sometimes, and you get punished some other times. No 1-drop on our opponent's side. I am a little bit afraid of my Tarmogoyf getting lightning bolted, so I might just play out the Kroxa instead. Go like Watery Grave, Stomping Ground. But at the same time, I kind of want to set myself up to double Shadow next turn. Overgrown Tomb, Blood Crypt. I'm going to go over to Overgrown Tomb, Blood Crypt, and I think I'm just going to play out the Tarmogoyf. Say, if it gets bolted, it gets bolted. Doesn't get bolted, great. If it gets bolted, it throws off their mana a bit. I just don't think Kroxa into like 6 cards is going to be that effective here. You have the bolt. They're pretty thrilled about that one. Kavu. Okay. And would be really nice. Not do a whole heck of a lot for me. So I'm probably taking a big chunk here. We'll Kroxa card out of hand. They're probably going to... I guess if they exile the Kroxa, that's actually better for me than them like looting into something more relevant. But I kind of feel like missing that third land drop hurt a bit too much. Especially if they end up having like a follow up to the Kavu here. Exile the Kroxa, hit me for Kavu. Okay. Land. Land would be prime draw here. That is not a land. Not a land. Double Shadow's not anything to slouch at here. Obviously, if they have like a Hidetsugu, didn't do anything about that. Have double tribal flames. Bad. I can't play around tribal flames. Like I've just got to double block one of the Kavus. Block a Kavu, see what happens. Okay. Not kill me. Tribal flames. Scion Drake. Well, dang. That could have been an out there. Now, if I attack in with this shadow, they're just guaranteed to block, right? There's no world where they don't block the shadow. Can't enable ferocious. If this were like tapped or not a tapped dead, basic, and I could play out the fable, then I could at least like present chump. Or no, I can't even chump with the trample. I can fetch shock a blood crypt. Bolt them. Unholy heat. Doesn't kill the scion. I can fetch shock. Bolt heat the scion, but I'm still one short of lethal. I can pass and try to like them draw dead. Nah. Even if I pass, like I have to fetch. So my only out is them like not blocking the shadow here. For whatever reason. I just can't imagine a world in which they don't block this shadow. Pass back. Maybe they don't attack with both of the Kavus and I get to like fetch shock, bolt plus heat one of them. But if I had the removal spells for both shadows or for both Kavus, I would have just killed them on my turn. And even if I only had the removal spell for one of them or something, if it also overlapped with Scion, I'd probably just kill the Scion. So, either way, we'll come back with the start of round number 5. All right, we are back for round number 5. Currently 3-1, playing for the 4-1. Looks like we're up against they known Living End Enthusiast. Be okay hand against Living End. We definitely need some more pressure. Like Bowmaster's okay. Bowmaster on the play is better than Bowmaster on the draw, but we need to like find a quicker clock. Need to find a shadow or a goyf, something like that. But hopefully this bauble scry will help us find it. You can also find like thought seizes or stubborn denials aren't the worst thing in the world. I'm gonna try my best to not show the blue right away. So like trying not to play blue fetches. Hopefully like hide that fact a little bit. Okay. Best draw would be Tarmogoyf. Goyf like best draw by a mile. Even Shadow wouldn't be terrible because I could like fetch shock, get Shadow down. Pass the turn. If they've got a cycler or if it's a land cycler. We hope it's a normal cycler. Get down the Bowmaster. Untap, because I don't want to create a situation where like I can't respond to them playing a cycler. Okay. Okay. We've got ourselves a game. Unless they have a grief, and then we no longer have ourselves a game. Funny how often games of Shadow are like won or lost on a little razor thin wire like that. Hey, I really hope my opponent doesn't have X. Oh, they had it. GG's. Troll kind of assuredly means that they have grief in their deck. Wouldn't run Troll without access to swamps. At least get one gotcha. Red source. See a little attack at yeah, might as well play out another Goyf, because if I don't, like, I'm dead to what's in the yard, even if I play out a Goyf post second living end. I don't think there's really any benefit to holding it in hand. Show me the outburst. I appreciate the outburst before even like letting the grief resolve initially. I can't imagine there's a big benefit to it, but get style points, I guess. Alright. So Spell Pierce, Stubborn, Spell Pierce, Flusterstorm, Veil of Summer, like the big ones I want to bring in. Stern Scolding's only really useful against grief. Not really anything else. Fable, pretty slow. Fable turn 2 off a Ragavan can be like excellent, but Fable at like any other point off anything else is pretty atrocious. I mean, just like Primacroxa, something like that. No Turox in this list because getting the triple black's kind of difficult. Not impossible though. We do have like Blood Crypt, Peatland, Overgrown Tomb, Watery Grave. Really just looking for turn 1 Ragavan. Ugh. Crap hand. I don't have a breeding pool, so I can't go like turn 1 bolt myself, turn 2 fetch breeding pool Goyf. So I would have to find a third land for this to be functional. That being said, if I do find a third land, it's a fetch land, then I have like turn 1 bolt myself, turn 2 Shadow, or turn 2 Goyf, turn 3 like Shadow, Veil, Stub, and I can kind of fight through everything. Ugh. I'm gonna risk it. I'm not in love with it, but it's the fact that I know the hand is one thing away from being solid, and that one thing is just another untapped land. Or another fetch land. That like gets me enough life loss to get Shadow online. It lets me get the blue for Stub. Leyline of Sanctity. Completely okay. Because out of the two of us, you are not the one I'm targeting with Lightning Bolt. The hope is that they kept a very subpar hand on the back of Leyline of Sanctity. And Go get stomping ground of our own, bolt ourselves. Our green mana. Shadow, hold up, Veil. If we're worried about a grief this turn. Probably the better play, honestly. Because if we went Tarmogoyf and they griefed and they got to take either my Veil or my Stubborn Denial, that'd be pretty rough for me. Moment of truth. Show me the land. On fetch land. Fetch land. Fetch land. Ragavan. Say go. I haven't had anything, so maybe if they're just like have it. They're tempted to land. Nice. Okay. Feeling a little bit better. Smidge better. Like I said, the hope was that our opponent would keep something like pretty subpar on the back of Leyline of Sanctity. And that kind of looks like what's happened here. Troll is fine. Watery Grave is also fine. Shocking in the Watery Grave. So I guess that means like what's it called? Wave. Whatever the big like 7 mana -1/-0 guy is that looks through 2. That is S tier draw. Now I've got not only the damage coming in, but I've got Veil of Summer up plus actual Stubborn Denial. Sky Turtle. Okay. Hit you for 6. Lands. Play Shadow. Not gonna play out the Goyf. Hold up my mana. They've got Grief, Violent Outburst, Force of Negation. Then yeah, they got it. Looking like they do. Not. Clearly do not have it. What was I talking about? I guess it's just like technically correct for him to do it on my upkeep. Okay. Leyline of Sanctity. I really don't care about Leyline. Like, it stops Thoughtseize. When we used to be like a 4 Thoughtseize, 2 to 4 Inquisition deck, Leyline was a lot more annoying. But I'm not boarding out Thoughtseizes just because Leyline exists, and I'm not boarding into Terra Sunder for it either. Like we saw that game, Leyline didn't do anything to actually stop what I was doing, and you run into the possibility of your opponent keeping like a subpar hand because it has Leyline. And if they do that, that's kind of a plus for me. Now, on the flip side of that, if your opponent keeps a hand with like Leyline, functional mana, the Cascade spells, the cyclers, and like the interaction they need, you're never winning that game anyway. So I wouldn't like judge your matchup based on losing to like Leyline plus 3 cyclers, Cascade spell with Force or Grief backup. Like, that's just bad beat. Got a Leyline opener again. I am playing out this Ragavan no matter what, so there's not really a big incentive to check out the top of my library. But I can save it for next turn and have like bobble myself, decide on the polluted delta, play out Tarmogoyf off the clue if I need to. Got Thunder rolling in. Bobble ourselves, see what we're drawing in. Fable, I don't particularly want, so I'm going to shuffle that away. Get my Overgrown Tomb, play out a Tarmogoyf, say go. Them starting off with a main phase Waker is good for me. Don't have the 3rd land. Okay. Something that I am fond of seeing. The Living End gone. Okay. What's my plan? I have lethal with the Bowmasters, right? Because I ping them down to 8. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'm just going to pass the turn back. Yeah. And this was the hope by passing the turn back, is that my opponent would think, oh, they don't have lethal here, and they wouldn't do anything to force the issue. And now I get to, like, double fetch. And I don't have to, like, cycle in response to the River Winder or anything. Like, I have lethal regardless. So there's just not a big incentive to playing out a bunch of unnecessary stuff. I guess I kind of forgot about Bowmaster not being able to ping them. Change things. That put them down to 1 instead of lethal. That might do it regardless. If I could have gotten one more point in casting Grief, doesn't do anything, so we just pass back with Dub and Flusterstorm and hope that's enough. If they grief me first and take one of them, then the other's online. Like if they take the stub, that puts an instant in the yard. Or if they take the Flusterstorm, that puts an instant in the yard to grow the Goyf. If they take the Flusterstorm, or they take the stub, then Flusterstorm's obviously got spell count. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so really good 4-1 there. Only loss being to Zoo, which if you're really wanting to tech for Zoo, like Spreading Seas is really good against them. Very easy for us to play with our mana. More Terminates are really good. The things I did notice, Unholy Heat was not delirious as much as I would have liked it to be. Fable was okay, but not great. Did feel like things were moving a little faster, so not as much time to kind of set up and have those Fable Kroxa draws. Kroxa was okay, but if you're thinking 4-color Shadow is something you want to check out, I could also be inclined to do something like cut 4 of these for 4 expressive iterations. Go something like that, and then the last spot could be some flex piece. But I really like Kroxa and Fable into like a Blood Moon heavy meta. Fable especially, because with like Rhinos at the top of the meta, the Scam deck still being very prevalent, Murktide, there's a lot of Blood Moon up at the top end. So just be careful when you're going into a big event that you are trying to play around Blood Moon if you can. Sideboard wise, Alpine Moon, a little mopey. You can't really play Blood Moon or Magus in this configuration, but this could just be something more impactful. Stern Scolding, we didn't really see a lot of Stern Scolding opportunities. We didn't see Yawgmoth, didn't see Hardened Scales. Terrasunder would have been good in several spots, but we didn't see it. Veil of Summer was decent. Spell Pierce and Flusterstorm decent. So overall, I'd probably say a solid like 63-ish cards of the 75. I'm pretty comfortable with, and just the other ones kind of nitpicking here and there until we find a configuration I really like. But as always, hope y'all are enjoying these testing videos. Thanks so much for checking it out. Don't forget to like and subscribe, blah, 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 if you're enjoying the content and enjoying the commentary. Otherwise, I will catch everybody back live later. As always, deck list in the description down below, as well as the Twitch in case you want to come check out a live stream. Twitter in case you want to know when those streams are going live, and the Discord if you want to come join the Cntrlfreak Discord. talk 4-color shadow or any other variants. Say hey, talk ideas. Other than that, yeah, go enjoy some good food and company. Catch y'all back live later. Adios for now.